It's time now for the political analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both President Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Good morning, all. Craig, we start with you this week, and the subject is Ron DeSantis. It seems like he read a book on how to make sure you don't get the nomination in the Republican Party in 2024. It seems like every political move he makes is significant. And I just love to get both of your perspectives on this. He was supposed to be this the smart Trump, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it goes to, frankly, lack of experience on a national level. I was reflecting on this and reminded that I've been a pilot all my life, and you can control a plane and land a plane with systems failing, but you can't do it if everything is failing. And it seems like every direction he goes, he's being met with problems. I mean, he finds himself on a book tour, and in the streets of Fort Lauderdale are flooded, and he doesn't even call the mayor. He finds himself coming to Washington to collect endorsements, and there are more endorsements that go to Trump during the same period of time. And I am just confounded why he is pursuing a strategy, fighting Disney, the Disney organization, which for heaven's sakes employs thousands and thousands of people, brings millions to Florida. And he's gonna get outfoxed, and he's gonna, by a group of people who are, even though he's appointed this board to theoretically govern the district or the area in which Disney is located, they'll be tied up in the courts. They'll be tied up with regulatory issues. And if he thinks this is going to be a victory, it isn't going to occur probably while he's governor. But more importantly, he's chosen an issue about which the American people have really no great interest. I mean, no one is asking the governor to rein in the Disney organization or the Magic Kingdom or whatever so it's absolutely puzzling. I think he is kind of trying to run a national race by bolstering his standing in his home state. He already has standing in his home state. Even his own Republicans are getting frustrated with the bills that he's pushing them to carry. A Republican-controlled legislature, he's should be able to get legislation through. He may not even be able to do that in this session because they're getting frustrated with him back home. So, is it over? No, but you can't have all these systems failing at the same time. And the problem he faces now is that, he did not need to be leading in the polls. He did not need to be signing up endorsers for his campaign, but he had to show forward momentum. And that forward momentum is sliding fast. And, he's got to regain, to use my flying metaphor, he's got to regain control of some of this aircraft, or it's not gonna land well.
Al, is there a price to be paid by taking on Mickey?
To be honest with you, DeSantis just baffles me, absolutely baffles me. I assume he wants to be president, but he sure doesn't act like it. Think about this. His party has lost the popular vote in 7 of the last 8 elections. And essentially they've lost them because they're losing swing voters, independents, college-educated voters, and women. So you'd think somebody who wanted to be president as a Republican would figure out a strategy that would hold his base, but would also try to add on those swing voters you need to get over the top. But Dukakis seems to be going the other way. His strategy seems to be to double down on winning votes of the most hardcore conservative right-wing Republicans who participate in primaries by taking on issues that drive away the very swing voters that Republicans need to have to win the White House. Now, on this particular issue, I know what I speak. After the 1988 presidential election, Democrats had lost 5 of 6. We lost the three elections in the 1980s, each case by losing over 40 states. And so we had to figure out with Bill Clinton what we were going to do for 92. We didn't decide that we were just going to consolidate the Democratic base because we knew what that would be, another 40 state loss. So we went out, and you'll remember Bill Clinton went after what he called the forgotten middle class. We developed an agenda consistent with our principles, but that we thought the majority of Americans, including those voters we needed to add to the Democratic vote in order to win, could support. For whatever reason, the caucus is DeSantis has just decided to go the other way, picked the strategy of being mini Trump. If there's one thing that I think Craig and I and most observers would agree on now, is that Trump can't win a general election. So why would you want to emulate him? It just doesn't make any sense. He has no real agenda for the country. Basically, a bunch of measures that he thinks can exploit the anger and grievances of that right-wing group in the Republican primaries. And now with Disney, he may be taking that strategy a step too far. There was a story in Politico this morning that he couldn't get the endorsements of the two Republican leaders in the legislature in Florida, and that more and more, even the Republicans in the legislature, Republicans in Florida, are worried about this course because, as Craig said, Disney, I think, is the biggest employer in Florida. To listen to Joe Scarborough, it's the heart and soul of the rebuilding of Florida as a tourist state, and here he's decided to take it on. There was another piece this morning written by John Judas in Substack. It's called, I think the actual column is called The Liberal Patriot. But John Judas is a reporter who's pretty good political analyst. And he, and the implication of the story is that maybe we've been overestimating DeSantis, because he points out that when DeSantis won, what Trump said is right. Trump helped him enormously in the primary, but the people who helped him more, and maybe this has guided his strategy, were two Democratic billionaires, George Soros and Tom Steyer, who Bob Graham's daughter, former Governor Graham's daughter, was the leading candidate, but they picked a very weak candidate and decided to support him, Andrew Gillum, who's now on trial for corruption that was known, incidentally, before the Democratic primary in 2018, and who took all of the most gross left-wing stands, and they put $2 million into his primary or more, had helped him win. And so, and that made a DeSantis win possible. But I guess when I sit back and think about it, the word I keep coming up with is baffled. I just don't understand it.
Craig, the other thing I thought we should talk about is the Dominion lawsuit against Fox News. There was a decision made out of court settlement in the area of $850 million. Certainly not the $1.6 billion that was the total amount in the suit. I know we've talked about this before, but we do have some closure now. And I guess the question is, does any of this change the way in which Fox News does its business?
I'm not sure that Fox is going to change its orientation a lot. We talked about this some weeks ago, and I think we both said that settlement seemed likely, that Rupert Murdoch in the end did not want to go to court and have to testify about memos and emails he'd already written about his concerns during the course of the campaign. And just as importantly, he didn't want to see his top talent be paraded into a courtroom to acknowledge that they said on air what they knew not to be true. This is not a great way to build a reputation of a news organization. But I don't know that Fox wants to be a news organization. I think they seem to want to appeal to the greatest number of people who will, turn on their channel, and that's a troubling situation. I'm all for news organizations figuring out how to, attract and hold an audience, but by doing it by telling the stories you think that audience wants to hear seems to be somewhat inappropriate. But I'm not sure, as long as they have the talent there and they keep paying them, that they can change much. Otherwise, they'll slip in ratings, and it's like a Pavlovian culture. It seems that they're going to say and do what brings more eyes to their screen. I want to add one more thing on DeSantis. So, it goes beyond policy. It goes to the question of whether, he has the kind of the personality to be a strong candidate at a national scene. And I thought that some of the stories about the fact that he doesn't call people, he doesn't engage with his staff, he's hard to get to know. Those are all issues that make it very problematic to seek this office. And even to link it to what you're talking about, you have to build a rapport with the journalists that are covering you. And if you're going to play to a station like Fox News, which he seems to do, and ignore some of the others, not comment, many of the stories we're reading about now about his foibles as a candidate have the phrase, DeSantis and refused to comment, his staff refused to comment, freezing out the media, the national media that covers these races is not the way to build a campaign. So I wonder how much further this can go. But a station like Fox, if they decide to bolster him, I suppose could do it.
Al, from a Democratic point of view, it seems like this would be perceived as a lost opportunity. What do you think that the consequences of Fox moving on at this point will be?
Well, I don't expect Fox to change, but I think you got to be realistic about things like this. And I'm sure a lot of my Democratic friends hoped that this would be the end of the Fox network, and it just never was going to be. I think Fox has been damaged, but the problem is it's been damaged with everybody but the people who watch it, so there's no reason for Fox, from its point of view now, to change course. The judges. When I was in journalism school, the first year you have to take press law. And admittedly, it was a very long time ago, but the one thing I remember, you don't remember very much about what you learned in class, but the one thing I do remember is that truth is the absolute defense against libel. And in this case, the judge ruled that Fox didn't tell the truth in many cases. And Fox suffered because during the discovery process, a lot of information came out that basically said they lied on the air. And that is not helpful. But again, that Fox viewers weren't saying that on Fox, so it didn't really matter. But look, I think that when a company agrees to a settlement that gives up $787.5 million, it probably that's pretty substantial price, and so I think Fox has probably been hurt. They've got 4 more lawsuits coming up, and basically on the same kind of topic. This probably will impact them in some ways. Now, I gather the next big one isn't going to be tried until 2025. But, so is Fox hurt? Yeah, us a little bit, but is it going to make much difference in the way it operates? Probably not.
Well, we have to leave it there. We'll be staying tuned. Al Fromm, Craig Fuller, thank you so much. Indeed, we will see you next week.